everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to do the last 10 books tag. This is a tag that I've seen floating around on BookTube for the last couple of weeks and I haven't been tagged personally, but I thought that the questions were really fun and interesting, especially because for some of these I had to grab some older books that I read pre-BookTube, so that's why I decided to just do this tag. Now I am going to upload this one a little bit earlier on Sunday than normally because at my normal upload time I will be online together with Steve and a bunch of other booktubers to have our spoiler-filled discussion for Malice, and I will leave all the details in the description box down below if you want to join in the live chat. That's of course still possible. So just that quick announcement again, but without further ado, let's get into the tag. And the first question is, what is the last book that you didn't finish? Now, if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I am terrible at DNFing books, so I don't have a lot of DNFs, but the last one that I actually did DNF, and I DNF'd the entire series, that's Wheel of Time, so I DNF'd the 5th book, Fires of Heaven. I might do a video about the first 4 books, which would then be a non-spoiler review, but in the format of why did I DNF this series, but I've talked about this for a while now, you know, I DNF'd Wheel of Time. But then another book that I recently read and that I finished, but I wish I DNF'd, and that is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrows. I thought I was going to love this one. It's very fairy tale-esque, the writing style is whimsical, it's right up my alley, but somehow I just didn't connect with any of the characters and didn't connect with the story either. I wasn't really interested in what was going to happen. And then the last 100 pages or so, I just skimmed through to know the ending, but at the same time, I just wanted to finish the book basically. So I didn't DNF this one officially, but I think it counts in that regard that if I was somebody who DNF'd and was a little bit more courageous than I am, I would have definitely DNF'd this one. The next question is, what is the last book that you reread? Now, I don't reread a lot of books. I just have so many books on my unread TBR that I don't make the time to reread known favorites. And that's something that I did a lot more when I was younger and I had less books on my shelves in general. But there is one book that I come back to at least once a month, and that is Daughter of the Forest, my favorite book of all time by Juliette Marillier. Now, I don't reread the entire book, but I go to a passage that I absolutely love, I start reading it, and then without realizing it, all of a sudden I'm 100 pages further. So this is definitely one that I pick up a couple of times too many, probably, but I just love it and the entire book, so yeah, definitely pick this up a lot. And then one that I am going to reread in June is, of course, Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan, because I am hosting a read-along for the entire series, together with Steve Talks About Books and Stuff and Epic Tales. So I read the first one, Bloodsong, already last year, and I'm going to reread it for the read-along. No, I'm going to love it. So I definitely want to make a little bit more time in my reading schedule in the future for rereads, especially if I had a couple of disappointing reads. I think that picking up a known favorite might uplift my spirits a little bit. The third question is, what is the last book that you bought? And I actually have a couple of packages that came in at the same time or the same day, but the last one that I opened up was The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. This is the first book in a series, but I've heard that the author is actually not really prioritizing finishing up this series at the moment, so at this time only the first one has come out. But I've heard from Sarah Reeds that she really enjoyed this book, she really enjoyed the friendship that is in this story, and that you can definitely read it as a standalone, so that you shouldn't really let it lay because you're waiting for the second installment, for example. And especially the friendship aspect was something that I was interested in, so that's why I picked it up. It came in the mail, I think 2 days ago, and I was very surprised by how thick it is. I think it's more than 800 pages, so I'm a little bit afraid of this book now to pick it up. But yeah, I've heard great things about it, not only from Sarah, but also some other people in the past, that I'm quite excited to pick it up someday, even though I don't think that I will be able to put it into my schedule in the upcoming months, unfortunately. The next question is, what is the last book that you said you read but you actually didn't? And like most people who answered this question, if you're out of high school, if you don't have any obligatory reads, you're not going to lie about any of the books. But I still have 2 of the books that I said I read in high school and I didn't. The first one is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert, and this is of course a very well-known French book, a French classic you could say, and I had to read it in French. Now, I actually did read this book at the time that I had to do it for the assignment, but I read it in Dutch, this exact copy, and it's a good thing because I actually really loved this book. I reread this copy a couple of times, and I don't think that I would have understood anything if I read it in French, because my French is horrible. You probably heard my pronunciation of Madame Bovary and you knew this person cannot speak French. So yeah, I read it, just not in the language that was required. And the same is true for Mornings in Jenin by Suzanne Abdullah. So this is again one that I had to read in French, which is a little bit strange because I don't think that this was originally written in French, but anyway, so I again read it in Dutch and really enjoyed it. And then one that I absolutely didn't read, I don't even have a copy of it, that's Les Miserables by, of course, Victor Hugo. Yeah, I wasn't interested in it, I'm still not interested in it, and I basically looked it up on Wikipedia. But the only person that I lied to was my teacher, and I think that he knew, based on my answers, that I didn't really read the book, so we're all fine. Next up, a question that I'm actually sad I can answer, and that's what's the last book that you wrote in the margins of? Now, of course, when I did a lot of work for school, I wrote in my textbooks, but that doesn't really count because you're supposed to do that. But last year I had a kind of period that I wanted to annotate my books. I thought that that would help if I would start a YouTube channel. So I was thinking about this a long way prior for my first video, but I decided to do it, and the first one that I completely did was one of the Chronicle of the Unhewn Throne trilogy books. And then I decided to also do this for A Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, the first book in the Life Ship Traders trilogy. As you can see, I didn't really come for because I didn't like annotating books. For instance, what I did was also, like, the lines here are pretty well done, and if I made a mistake, I was always very angry about that. And just while doing it, I realized that I wasn't paying attention to the book, because I was constantly thinking, is this something that I should annotate? Do I need to underline this? Do I need to make a comment? Which is stupid. And then if I underlined something and a couple of paragraphs afterwards I wanted to underline something as well, I thought, well, but isn't this going to be too colorful? Shouldn't I just stop? Which isn't the point of annotating. So I guess that I'm just not the annotating kind of person, but I did give it a try, and the last one that I tried it with is Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. The next question is, what is a book that you had signed? Now, I think that most people know that I have a signed copy of Malice, the hardcover edition, but I didn't have that signed. I just bought it used, and I was very happy to see that it was signed. But I do have one book from my childhood that is actually signed by the author. I asked him to sign it for me, and that is The Revenge of a King's Daughter. I don't even know if this is actually translated in English, but that's what it says in Dutch, by Paul Kustermans. And yeah, he signed it for me. I think I was 10 or something like that, and he even had like an entire note about his book. So I actually really loved this book. Now, come to think of it, this was a really good Viking-inspired historical fiction book. And I had it signed. The next question is, what is a book that you lost, or the last book that you lost? And I lost Lord of the Flies, again, in high school. I think that lost is definitely a euphemism because it was basically stolen. And I'm going to stick with that story, and every time I think about it, I'm angry all over again. But basically, Lord of the Flies is a book that we had to read for our English classes in high school. I bought that book, I absolutely loved it. I had this very cheap edition, but I actually liked how it looked. And at that time, I didn't have a ton of books. Like I said, I was in high school, and I wasn't really into reading that much. So when I had to buy one for school, and I actually liked it, it was a prized possession. Then a year afterwards, somebody who had to do the class all over again because he failed, asked me if he could borrow Lord of the Flies of me. I said, yeah, okay, sure. Gave it to him, then asked for it back, I think over a period of 4 years, like every month, and he never contacted me back, and I think that he just threw it away or something like that. And now, of course, I can, you know, I should be calm about it, and I should think it's only 8 euros or something like that, so it's fine. But just the rudeness of it. I gave you a book for your schoolwork and you don't give it back, and you don't even tell me what happened. If it's like, oh, sorry, it's damaged, it's a mistake, I'm sorry, or I lost it on the train or something like that, I can live with that, but don't ignore me after I did you a favor. I can still get upset about that one. The next question is, what is the last book that you had to replace? And I never had to replace a book. I think I keep all of my books in pretty good condition, but I do have 2 books that I have double copies of. The first one is Robin Hobb, one of the Rainwild Chronicles, I think the first one, because I have it in paperback and then I couldn't find it again, but I found the used copies in hardback here. And then another one also by Robin Hobb, this is Fool's Errand, again in Dutch. First book, bought it, and then couldn't find these editions anymore, but I could find some used editions, and it was, well, it came in a package. You had to buy the entire trilogy used. Did that, so this is actually a copy that I don't need any longer, but I'm just going to keep it. So it's not really replaced because I didn't have to replace them because they got damaged or anything like that, just because I wanted to have other editions. Then almost the last question, what is the last book that you had an argument about? And to be honest, I thought about this one for a while. None. If you like a book and I dislike it, that's fine. If I dislike a book and you like it, that's also fine. I like to have discussions about books, and I do have quite a few over on StreamYard with other booktubers, or just in general here on the channel. I started this channel because I want to have discussions about books and to know what other people think about a certain book that I love or dislike, where I had some problems with it. I like to hear other people's opinions and talk about that. But that's not really an argument. I never get too heated or too attached to a book that I feel personally attacked when somebody dislikes something that I love. So argument, never, luckily, and let's hope that it stays that way. And then the last question, what is the last book that you couldn't get a hold of? Now, to be honest, a lot, and I don't even know what the last one was per se, but one that I still remember is the Crossroads trilogy by Kate Elliott, because this was a book or a series, an entire trilogy, that I had on my TBR for 2021, but I just couldn't get a hold of the books. They weren't on Book Depository, they weren't on Amazon.nl, so the Dutch version of Amazon. I also don't think that they were even on Amazon for the UK or US, and maybe on 8books they were present, but then it was like €100 for a used book, and I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. Maybe if I knew that I was going to love the books, but even then, no, probably not. So that's a risk that I'm not willing to take. So you could say, yes, I could get a hold of them, but they would be crazy expensive to buy. So, and then there are some other books, and I will just leave some of the covers here, that I had the same thing, that somebody on BookTube recommended them to me, but then when I wanted to find them, they weren't available new, and used they were very expensive, or shipping costs were very expensive, because a lot of people that talk about these books actually found them used in a second-hand store in the US, where you can easily find some hidden gems. But then here in Belgium or in Europe, if you have to pay shipping costs, it's sometimes €6 to ship one book. That's crazy. Nobody's going to do that for a mass market paperback, and we don't really have used bookstores where you can find old fantasy. So some of these books I didn't really was able to get a hold of, but on the other hand, it's not like I'm dying to get to these, so if I can't find them, it's fine. I have enough other books that I can get to. So those were all of my answers for the last 10 book stack. Please let me know your answers in the comments down below. And I'm not really going to tag anyone because, as I said, I wasn't tagged either. Just consider yourself tagged if you're interested in doing this video, and then also let me know in the comments down below that you are going to do that video so I can look forward to it. As always, I hope that you enjoyed the video, and see you next time. Bye!